Hello, and thanks for mathing with me today. In this video, we will add and subtract decimals. To add and subtract decimals, the first step is to write the numbers one under the other. The most important thing is to make sure that the decimal points are lined up and that all numbers and places are lined up. And then, if necessary, we add zeros as placeholders until the numbers have the same number of decimal places. And then we'll add using columns, making sure that our decimal point is in the same place in our answer. In the steps where we write extra zeros, remember that a zero is really saying that there is no value at that decimal place. So for example, in a number like 10, 0 is saying there are no ones. Or in a number like 2.50, the 0 is saying no hundredths. Let's do some examples together. So the first thing we want to do is to set up our vertical addition problem. So we're going to rewrite this as 1.452, and then we're going to write our 1.3 underneath, making sure our decimals are lined up and all the places are lined up. So once we have that written, now we want to add our zeros as placeholders so that we don't misalign things. It just helps us to keep our work neater and to know what we're adding together. Now we're going to add vertically. So we know 2 plus 0 is 2, 5 plus 0 is 5, 4 plus 3 is 7. We write our decimal in the same place, and then 1 plus 1 is 2. So we see here that 1.452 plus 1.3 is equal to 2.752. Let's try another example together. This next example, we have 1.5 minus negative 4.9, and hopefully you remember that 1.5 minus a negative would be a plus. So we're really adding 1.5 and 4.9 here. So let's set up our vertical problem. 1.5 plus 4.9. Here we don't have to add any zeros as placeholders because we have the same number of places. So as usual, 9 plus 5, we get 14. We're going to carry the 1. 4 plus 1 plus 1 is going to give us 6, and we need to make sure to have our decimal in the same place in our answer as it was in our problem. So 1.5 plus 4.9 is equal to 6.4. Now it's your turn to try some examples. Try numbers 3 and 4 on your own. Pause the video and try them now. Hopefully you paused the video and found that 5.1 plus 0.74 equals 5.84. Hopefully you remember to add your placeholder here for the 0 in the hundredths place of 5.1. And in number 4, 2.7 minus negative 4.9 is actually 2.7 plus 4.9, which equals 7.6. Now let's subtract decimals. In this case, we write the number that we are subtracting under the number we are subtracting from. So in the addition problems, it really doesn't matter what number's on top and what number's on bottom, but in subtraction problems, it absolutely matters. So the number we are subtracting from needs to be on the top, and the number we are subtracting needs to be underneath, again with the decimal points lined up. If necessary, we add zeros as placeholders just like we did previously, and then we subtract again using columns just like in addition, and we make sure that our decimal point is also in the same place. So hopefully you notice that I set up my subtraction problem, 4.7 minus 1.32. So what I'm subtracting is under what I'm subtracting from. And I'm going to add this 0 as a placeholder. I made it a different color just so that it was easy for you to see, but you can just write it with your regular pencil or whatever you're using. So remember, hopefully you remember your borrowing rules, right? If I'm going to borrow, because I cannot subtract 2 from 0, so I'm going to borrow from the 7. That becomes a 6, and now I have a 10 in the hundredth place. So 10 minus 2 is 8. 6 minus 3 is 3. We write our decimal point so we don't forget it, and 4 minus 1 is 3. So we have 4.7 minus 1.32 is equal to 3.38. In this next example, we are subtracting a larger number, 7.368, from a smaller number, 1.15. So this requires us to set the problem up in a little bit different way. So we have to remember that our answer we know is going to be negative. And maybe in case you might forget, you might want to just set up your answer right away, right? Equals a negative. We know that we're going to have a negative answer because we are subtracting a larger number from a smaller number. But in order to get the right difference between the two numbers, we're going to set the problem up as if we are subtracting 1.15 from 7.368. So just like I did, I set up the problem 7.368 minus 1.15, and then don't forget to add your placeholder just to keep your numbers lined up nicely. All right, and now we're going to subtract. 8 minus 0 is 8. 6 minus 5 is 1. 3 minus 1 is 2. We put our decimal, and 7 minus 1 is 6. So we have the answer. The difference between these two numbers is 6.218. But when we're subtracting the larger number from the smaller number, we're going to write the answer as a negative. So negative 6.218 is our answer. All right, now it's your turn to try some examples. Pause the video and try numbers 7 and 8 on your own, remembering to keep your work very neat and all lined up, especially your decimal points. All right, hopefully you paused the video, and in number 7 you found that 3.23 minus 2.4 equals 0.83. And in number 8, 2.17 minus 5.8, which is the larger number, is equal to negative 3.63. I hope that in this video you learned how to add and subtract decimals. The most important thing that you remember is to keep your work neat and organized with the decimals and all the places lined up. Thanks so much for mathing with me today.